Flagpole, live from 64 Broadway, downtown Fargo, in the new studios, new station, new programming at right in the heart of downtown at AM 1100, just on your dial, and AM1100.tv on your internet, and right here on Broadway if you want to walk by and look in and see what's going on. It's a real honor and pleasure to be part of this program. What we're doing the first couple weeks is just getting to know each other and launching the flag high over downtown Fargo. The flagpole is the evening program. Scott Hennon has a morning program that's live in studio, and this is the evening program, so we're just getting to know each other and introducing all of us, our neighbors, to you. This segment we're going to be visiting with an author from Fargo, downtown Fargo, Aabye, and he's written 3 books, so we'll get into his mind, and some of it's some pretty interesting stuff. The next segment, beginning at 8:30, we'll have a musician, Blind Joe, coming into the studio, and truly, Blind Joe will knock your socks off. So this is one of the fun things of this, is being able to introduce you all to lots of types of people, and musicians is one of them. So again, John Strand, your host. We're here at 64 Broadway, encouraging you to join up on the phone via the telephone 271-1100, or out of town toll free 888-598-8464. You can email us at talk@am1100.tv. You can join us online where it's live streaming and live visual. There's cameras running. It's radio you dress up for. But for the moment, let's go back to in studio. Aabye, you are. How did you become an author? And when did this all happen? This is rather recent in your life, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's that recent. It probably started a little over 10 years ago. And I suppose my chances, that I did become an author, were probably really against the odds, considering my background education-wise. As far as I struggled and had a lot of trouble learning in my early years in grade school. In fact, an example, my dad would look at my report cards in grade school, and he'd say, "I know your mom and I aren't stupid." So I just...
well, we all learn differently, don't we?
That's right. And I kind of gravitated to manual type labor, and then when I got about 60, almost 10 years ago, I maybe lost it completely. I started singing a little karaoke and scribbling up some books.
And so, Carl, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I was born on a farm in Pearly, Minnesota, and then at a young age, my dad moved to Moorhead off the farm, wanted to make more money, and his youngest brother took over the farm, and of course I had hired hands years ago, and I remember those in the summertime, and I spent a lot of time at my grandma's farm in the summertime and uncle's place. So my dad worked at Armour's, and then that was a pretty good paying job years ago in the early 40s, and then he ended up working as a Fargo fireman for about 37 years, and worked a second job at branding manufacturing. So he was kind of a workaholic. So I didn't exactly take after Dad.
Well, you know, one thing I've known as I've met you over the years and seen you around downtown and visited with you, Carl, you always have something on your mind. There's always stuff going on in the world out there that, you know, that you're particularly interested in and focusing on, and your wheels are turning. People out there in the listening land might recognize Carl's voice, because you not uncommonly will call into local talk shows and have very pertinent tidbits to share, and historically you're always so, isn't it? You know what, that's kind of my sense of you.
Well, I appreciate that, John, and I've heard that a few times, so maybe you're onto something.
So let's ask this: what's on your mind now about the world we're in today?
Well, I'm watching politics, of course. It's the silly season, and I'm also interested in economics, and I believe I have a spatial sense of proportion. Algebra wasn't my forte, but I believe proportion and, like I said, spatial and how things relate to each other. I do have some concerns, but I don't want to be that much of a cynical whatever.
When you say spatial, or are you accenting special?
Well, however, what is it? Is it S-P-A-T-I-A-L?
Spatial, you're talking spatially.
Like how one thing relates to another in time and distance.
What's your concerns about what's going on in the world now?
There's so much information out there, and you got to try to, from many different sources, and I guess you have to try to not get bought up into any one thing completely, and try to see the forest for the trees or the trees for the forest or whatever. I don't know how well I'm articulating that, but
Where do you get your information, Carl?
I look at magazines, I visit with people, I read more than one newspaper if I get a chance. I'll even look at the Wall Street Journal and a lot of things that I would start to read years ago I didn't exactly understand, but I kept reading them, and then pretty soon you eventually kind of pick up on the vocabulary of what they're talking about.
So for those joining up with us, this is the Flagpole Live at 64 Broadway. John Strand, your guest host. Carl Aabye, a local author, recently developing a local author, is in the studio here with us, and we're visiting about his work and his vocation of writing and publishing. If you'd like to join up, it's 271-1100 or toll-free 888-598-8464. We're live streaming online at am1100.tv, where you can listen and learn or listen and watch, see how we dress for radio or how we look on radio. Carl, your books are the names of your books: Terrorists Among Us, Patriot Act Gone Awry, Savant's Melody of Mystery. You know, you're pushing some buttons, or you're reacting, or you're tuning in to local issues, the contemporary topics, aren't you?
That's right. Except for my last book, Savants, might be a little bit different than, not so much along political lines, but about kind of my experiences of life.
I remember.
Looking back, yeah.
Terrorists Among Us came out not long after 9/11, didn't it?
Right.
And I remember one of my writers in the office at the High Plains Reader, I was going to have her read. She took the book home to review it. She brought it back and says, "I don't want to do this. This is too close to reality." She thought that you really were too, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, actually, a lot of people had said I was pretty prophetic, because they said what you wrote from that point on kind of was happening. Like I was, but I guess it was because I think I had a pretty good balance and sense of the world and what's going on. I probably was Pollyannish in that I made the Arabs coming in as illegal Mexican immigrants and taking Hispanic surnames, and I might be Pollyannish in that I made humans out of them. I was gutsy or stupid. I wrote through the eyes of one of these Muslim fundamentalists, and I'm American Norwegian Lutheran, so I guess I'm not afraid to get in over my head.
And what did you see through the eyes of that terrorist as you took on that character?
Well, I tried to, I just did my best to write it that way in a kind of like a first person, as a travelogue, and their trials and tribulations and problems, and it's a evolving story. They are affected by conditions and people when they get over here, so it's an evolving story. They have their preconceived ideas of what the world is and what their job is and what they're supposed to do, but things don't always, work out the way they're supposed to.
Carl, how on earth did you shed our own prejudices to get into those shoes?
Boy, that's a tough question, but I hope I did a good job. What can I say? Read the book and see how good or bad I did.
So that's the first book. Let's take a little break. We're going to come back after a moment. This is John Strand in studio with Carl Aabye, a local author. He's written 3 books: Terrorists Among Us, Patriot Act Gone Awry, Savant's Melody of Mystery. You can call up at 271-1100 or toll-free 888-598-8464. You can walk by on Broadway, downtown Fargo, and see the flagpoles programming live through the windows. You can wave and catch us on live. We'll take a break.